Recently, you might have caught interviews with icons like Shaun Ryder of the Happy Mondays and Robbie Williams sharing their experiences with Andropause. It's great to see high-profile figures discussing this condition, as it affects countless midlife men and their loved ones. But here's the thing, Andropause isn't limited to rock stars.
This often overlooked condition has been under-researched, with estimates suggesting that 20 to 25% of men may experience symptoms of low testosterone. In this episode, we lift the lid on andropause and give you some actionable pointers to start dealing with the symptoms and start having conversations around it.
Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. We're very sorry. We haven't been getting these out as frequently as we normally do. I think they've been coming every other week for the last few weeks, but we are back in the land of living after America and Ibiza, and we've got our mojo back. So we're going to commit to you right now that we're going to do one a week again. Because I do think we've got our mojo back, haven't we?
Oh, 100%. And also, to be fair, we've been chasing up a lot of the contacts we made in America. We've been chasing them up, trying to schedule interviews and stuff. So we've got a load of great guests coming up.
We have.
So it's just taken a bit of time to sort out as well.
But before we dive into what we've been up to, why don't you let everyone know what we're talking about today?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the andropause. Now, I know we have talked about this before, but it was a long time ago, and I think it's really worth revisiting it.
What is the andropause?
We're going to
talk about it in a minute.
We're going to talk about it in a minute. But listen, if you're a man, you definitely want to listen to this. If you're a woman, you definitely want to listen to this for the men in your life. We're going to break it all down in a minute. But what have we been up to?
Well, this morning, we're currently sitting in our London flat with the gorgeous autumn sunshine streaming through. We went to the gym. I finally, again, also got my mojo back. This is really amazing. Like, I did work out when I was away, but gently. And actually, after 9 years of going to the gym, lifting weights, going kind of heavy and, really committed and frequently, I actually just allowed my body a big old rest. And it has been hard, I have to say, to get my motivation back and my inspiration for the gym. But I'm pleased to inform you all that this week it has come back. So I do feel a lot more like myself again. It is nice. When you're out of your routine, we say this all the time, it does throw other things out as well, actually. So kind of going to the gym, getting my motivation, my confidence back in the gym is positively impacting other areas of my life as well. So we did that. Then we went to the Lido, Parliament Hill Lido, which is near us, for a very chilly swim this morning. It's now down to 8 degrees.
Yeah, water temperature 8 degrees, air temperature 3 degrees. But actually, when you come out, it's very chilly. But very bracing and very invigorating for the day ahead.
Yeah, and then what else have we been up to?
So we DJ'd. We DJ'd again. So you may not know this, but we're DJing as a couple now. We play classic house. We're out and about in London. And this comes from me. I used to DJ back in the 90s.
Back in the day, I thought you were going to say.
So I used to, travel around London with my record boxes, massive big record boxes, all turntables and vinyl, playing in clubs and bars.
You can imagine, can't you, listeners, what he got up to back in the day in the 90s.
But then it all went digital and I kind of didn't continue. But then Claire and I thought it would be really fun. So we found someone to basically take us through the basics of the digital setup. We got our own little Pioneer XZ, which is an amazing bit of kit. We practiced away and we just played our second gigs. We did like a 3.5, almost 4 hour set at the local pub in the afternoon.
That was great.
All classic house. It's amazing. They've asked us back for another one. So December the 2nd, if you're around in Primrose Hill,
if you're in London, full stop.
It's also my birthday, so feel free to bring gifts. or just buy me a drink.
Yeah, it is his birthday, so bless him. And then we've done our series of talks at Soho House. Well, actually, we haven't. We've done another one of those at Soho House.
That was a great one.
That was all around midlife hormones. We've got another one coming up next week, all around midlife libido and relationships. So we're hoping people are going to, we've been booked out. So we've actually had a waiting list on the other two. We're hoping this one's going to have a waiting list as well, but we do know that this might be a slightly uncomfortable topic for some people. So listen, if you're in London or around London, please do, if you can, join us. Obviously, Soho House is a members only club, but we are allowed a few guests here and there. So if you would like to come and you're not a member of Soho House, then just ping us an email. We're going to get an influx of emails now. Ping us an email, first come, first served. But yeah, we're doing that. And then you've had some great stuff happen for you, Reece, in the last couple of weeks, haven't you?
Yeah, so I was, again, on another menopause summit in the US. Unfortunately, I wasn't flown to the US for it. It was a virtual summit, but I was there basically talking about the menopause and the lifestyle adjustments you can make to help optimize your hormone response through the menopause. So that was really great. And then I found out, and hence the reason for this podcast, one of the reasons for this podcast, I've been doing a lot of work around the Andropause, and I was fortunate enough to do a lot of work with Citibank for Men's Health Month last year, and we talked about the Andropause in depth. We delivered an Andropause program for them. I've talked about the Andropause in other organisations as well. So it's something close to my heart. I'm just trying to raise awareness of it. Well, Claire and I are trying to raise awareness. And then I found out the Workplace Wellbeing Awards have actually been shortlisted for the Men's Health Advocate of the Year. For the work that I've been doing around that. So we thought, actually, and also coincidentally, we've had a few people email us about the Andropause. Have we got more links to more resources? Where can we learn more about it? So we thought, actually, this would be really timely to revisit it and kind of talk it down. Also, you might have seen that in the press, we've had some high-profile men start to talk about it now. Robbie Williams has said that he was suffering from the Andropause, or is suffering from the effects of the Andropause. Shaun Ryder was talking about he felt the effects of the Andropause, just feeling knackered all the time and not able to do anything. So it's starting to get more awareness, which I think is great.
I think it might be helpful. Obviously, we're saying that word Andropause a lot. This is going to be James. I say this is going to be James speaking a lot more on this podcast because this is his podcast. I said, why don't you do it on your own? But actually, I do think it's really, really helpful. Like James does with the menopause. It's when I do workshops on the menopause, or we do talks, it's really, really helpful to have that male and female perspective. So I said, James, why don't you do it yourself? And he was like, no, it'd be really helpful to have you just kind of putting some of your thoughts from a female perspective in. So here I am doing that.
Absolutely.
But what is the Andropause?
Yeah, so I think everyone has a pretty clear understanding of what the menopause is now. So the menopause for women is when their primary sex hormones, which are estrogen and progesterone, are starting to decline and fade away. So for men, obviously, our primary sex hormone is testosterone. So for men, testosterone peaks in our 20s, and then it declines at a rate of 1 to 2% a year, which doesn't sound a lot. But when it's compounded over time, by the time we're hitting our 40s, probably into our 50s, 60s definitely, we'll start to feel the effects of those lower levels of testosterone. So there are biological changes that occur due to this decline in testosterone, but it affects us physically, mentally, emotionally, even psychologically. Now, the thing is, at the moment, they estimate, because it's not really talked about, there's not much awareness around it, and I think a lot of the symptoms can be confused with other things, stress, just natural aging. So at the moment, they estimate that between 20 to 25% of men over 50 suffer from symptoms of low testosterone, although that is likely to be much higher because we know this is a process that is occurring for all men. So at the moment, I'd say it's often undiagnosed and misunderstood.
Well, yeah, because also a lot of men, unlike women, we're being encouraged, and we've got so much information. It's so amazing that we've got so much information about the menopause. So even a few years ago, it was still a taboo subject. It was like, oh, the woman's going through the change. And I know for my mum's generation, it was one of those things that wasn't really talked about. They just got on with it. But we are now seeking help. We're now talking about it a lot more. This is amazing. But those stats for men are only the ones that are kind of talking about the fact.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like we're probably, with the Andropause, probably where we were with the menopause 10 to 15 years ago. A lot of doctors won't recognise it.
Yeah.
The NHS doesn't want to prescribe TRT for it. Their marker for low free testosterone is so low that you wouldn't really be functioning properly. So there's a lot of factors there. Also, you've got to think men don't talk to each other about this type of stuff. and they're much less likely to seek help from their health professionals as well. You know, if they're finding out that their libido's gone, or they're suffering from erectile dysfunction, it might be like, oh, this is not something I want to talk about to anyone. I'll just bottle it up inside. Which is also, I think, coincidentally, why we see, or one of the factors contributing to the highest suicide rate is amongst midlife men in the UK, sadly. And I'm sure that there are a lot of reasons and factors playing into that: cultural, societal, money pressures, all the rest of it. But also, andropause will be playing a role in there, I feel.
Yeah, and that's why it is so important to talk about this and raise awareness of this, because it just might happen that there are men out there that might stumble across this podcast, might stumble across all the amazing work that James is putting out and has put out, and actually thinks, oh my goodness, I'm not so alone. Whether they do anything about that information is I suppose, our job and James's job as an expert is to keep raising awareness of it, to such a degree where men are feeling more comfortable to go and talk about it, even with their friends, or go into with their partners, or even their doctor. But it is a shame that, I'm going to just put this out there. So James has been raising awareness in the background for about 3 years on this, and he's in a group where he posted something about the andropause and about supporting men, and he gave the stats about midlife male suicide and how men, they don't seek help, especially at midlife. Their social network gets smaller and smaller. They're reaching the age where they're going to retire. There's this whole feeling of, who am I? What do I stand for? It's their self-identity starts to shift and change. But he put this post in the group about supporting men and calling it the andropause. The women in that group just absolutely annihilated James, and that made me so angry, so cross, and so sad, because it's not an either or. I believe that as women, we should be supporting men talking about stuff like this, because it's not a competition. Talking about the andropause doesn't take anything away from the menopause. It's a joint thing. Actually, why can't we support each other? So that's why I'm here on this podcast as well, and this is why I will go to any length to support what James is doing and to support men at this time of life, because for me, it's a really heartfelt led thing that I really, really want to raise awareness, so that men aren't suffering in silence so much.
And I think it's so important, because we still do have, I think, a culture, particularly in the age group that we're talking about, 40 plus, 50 plus, men should be strong and silent, don't talk about things. And we know from all the research that men are likely to have much smaller social networks than females. They're much less likely to seek help from health professionals. So all these contributing, I think when andropauses are playing a part, it's affecting men physically. So let's talk about some of the symptoms. But the physicality, a lot of men will define themselves by their physicality and their kind of energy levels, and those start to wane. So that can lead to all kind of psychological pressures. Of course, if you factor in things like, libido drops and things like erectile dysfunction as well, that can have a big impact psychologically. So symptoms are fatigue, reduced libido, erectile dysfunction, difficulty concentrating, mood swings, particularly like low mood, and increased anxiety, maybe even tipping into depression. On the physical side, you may most notice increased body fat, particularly around the waist area, on the belly, reduced muscle mass, reduced strength, obviously with that, and diminished bone density. So you start to feel like you're getting quite sluggish. You might have difficulty concentrating, your energy, your drive has gone. And of course, like Claire's saying, if you're in a relationship, whether that's a same-sex or heterosexual relationship, and you're not open and talking about this with your partner, you can start to see how real problems could start to develop if both partners are experiencing similar things at the same time, but don't know how to understand what's happening to themselves, but communicate what's happening. It can really start to drive a wedge. And of course, the impact isn't just on relationships, on career as well, because if focus and confidence and productivity are dropping, men might start to feel that they're not as valued in the workforce. They might start to think that it's the time to leave, when actually they've still got a lot to give. So I think we need to understand what's going on here. And then obviously there's an impact on relationships as well, where it's going to impact intimacy unless we can open those communication channels and start having the conversations. There's a lot of studies showing that low testosterone levels impact cognitive function, so memory and concentration goes as well. I think it's been quite a standing joke in the menopause about the memory lapses, forgetting things, all that. But the same thing happens to men as well at this time of life. One thing I will say is, a lot of these symptoms can be from other things. So if you are experiencing some or all of these, do go and see your health professional and get checked out, because you don't want it to be something else that potentially is as or even more serious. But also, these are symptoms that people could just dismiss as something that's going to pass. But I'd say if they're being constant in your life, then it's time to go and get them checked out. One thing that is going to amplify all these and make them far, far worse is stress. So stress, when we release cortisol, it's going to negatively impact. We've talked about this loads in stress on other podcasts, but cortisol is basically a negative amplifier for all the things we don't want. It's going to make us store more body fat. It's going to break down our muscle faster. It's going to increase our anxiety. It's going to increase our low mood, decrease our serotonin levels. All these things going on. It's to decrease our libido. So all that, if stress is a player in your life, it's going to feel even worse. So I just want to really highlight how important it is to understand, not just what's going on physiologically for you, but how psychologically you're being affected as well, because then we can start to take steps around it. And the good news is there are things that we can be doing. So say on the mental health side, we know that low testosterone is associated with an increased risk of depression and anxiety. And we already highlighted that the highest suicide group in the UK is midlife men. So we want to start getting some coping strategies in place. And these are going to overlap with what you can do for the hormonal support as well, right? So we know things like regular exercise. When we exercise regularly, we produce endorphins, which boost our mood. So that can help alleviate depression and anxiety. We want to maybe start thinking about things like mindfulness practice, daily gratitude practice. That's something we work on with our clients. I work on with my male clients, is really getting centered and grounded at the start of the day, being grateful, setting the intention for the day. Because when we do that, when we shift that and move from that obstacle to opportunity thinking, develop a more positive mindset, we're actively changing the psychology. So we're acknowledging what's going on there with the hormones and neurotransmitters, and we're working to actually counteract it. Of course, you might also want to seek some sort of support if you're feeling really bad about it, a good talking therapy, something like that. Now, in terms of the physical side, and actually the emotional and mental as well, there are certain things we can do to help the hormone levels. So particularly resistance training. Now, guys, we know that testosterone and growth hormone are dropping as we age, which means we're losing muscle mass. Muscle's metabolically active. The more muscle we carry, the more calories we burn, so we're less likely to put on weight. So we want to maintain our muscle. We want to be strong going into our old age. So we must resistance train. Now, this doesn't have to be in the gym. It can be at home. But I will say, the research does suggest if you can lift heavier weights, then you are going to get a hormonal response as well. So when we exercise at intensity and or lift heavy weights, we get a spike in testosterone and human growth hormone. So if we're doing that regularly, we're actually going to, slow the rate of decline. So we're going to feel that boost. We also want to make sure that we're dialing in our diet. And there's so much in our diet that impacts our hormone pathways. So, processed foods, sugars, chemicals we might ingest. So we want to try and get back to a diet that is as close to natural as possible, rich in essential nutrients. Make sure we're getting the right vitamins and minerals in that support overall well-being. I'm not going to dive into all the supplementation, but you want to make sure you're getting a good broad spectrum of vitamins. Ones particularly important for hormones are vitamin D3, vitamin C. We want to make sure we've got enough zinc and magnesium, because those really help support testosterone production as well. I don't know if you've got anything you want to throw in there.
No. I'm just sitting here letting you do your thing and just sitting here being very proud of the information that you're giving. It's very helpful. I'm hoping I'm sure everyone's finding this very helpful, so I'm just letting you flow. Great.
So what I would say is, like we've talked about with HRT, for men there is the option of TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, but again, I'd say it's not a magic pill. Like we say with HRT, you can't just go on HRT but not adjust anything else in your life and think it's going to solve things. You do need to be making these lifestyle adjustments. And I'd say to any man, first of all, make the lifestyle adjustments, right? Start cleaning up your diet, get more balance with your alcohol if you're drinking a lot, cut back the sugars, cut back the processed foods, start weight training regularly, start exercising regularly. do the mental work as well. Do your morning gratitude, practice mindfulness, do breathing exercises. All this stuff is going to help. It is absolutely going to help.
Managing stress, basically.
Learn how to manage stress.
Learn how to manage stress is such a massive factor.
Yeah. Once you've done that, see how you're feeling, see what improved. Now, if you're really worried about this, the way to know if you're in andropause or not is to get a series of blood tests. Now, remember, a blood test is only going to show you your hormones at a point in time, i.e. when that test is done. So ideally, you want to get a series of tests. And with testosterone, we have our total and our free. But here's the thing about testosterone. About 98% of it is bound up. So it's the free we want. Only 2% is free. And it's that free one that matters. If it's too low, that's when we might want to consider testosterone replacement therapy. And this is super popular now in the States. I would say it's verging on being oversubscribed, though. Obviously, when it's private, there is an incentive for doctors to prescribe it because they're making money from it. I know for a lot of men, it is transformative for their health if they have been suffering with low testosterone. But just be sure that you are low before you consider it, because there are side effects you need to consider. There's mixed research on the coronary effects of TRT, but there could be an increased risk of cardiovascular events. There's a potential risk to prostate cancer. There's a risk of blood clotting. And the main one to consider is whether you still want to have kids, because once we start using testosterone, inputting testosterone ourselves, we effectively shut down our own testosterone production.
I don't think many people know that.
No. So for women, it's quite clear cut. Their estrogen and progesterone is going, so it makes sense for them to go back on it. Our testosterone's going, but at the point we start putting testosterone artificially into our bodies, i.e. not our own, we're going to shut down our own production. So that's something really to consider. There's other issues, there's other side effects as well. So I just say, if it is something you want to know about, go to a doctor. I would advise not going to an NHS doctor, just simply because they're not educated on this at all. And their markers for low free testosterone, like I say, are so low that you would definitely be in a bad state if you were there already. So if you can, go private on this.
And that's nothing against GPs. They're general practitioners. They've got so much to cover. And we do know that for the menopause, that they only have like an afternoon actually in all of their training where they talk about menopause. So talking about andropause it would be completely alien to them. It's not their fault. They're not taught this stuff. We're actually menopause practitioners and have gone through a lot of information to be able to support people through the menopause and the andropause. I mean, it is amazing now the way it's being spoken about and talked about. But like James said, I think we're at where the menopause was about 14 to 15 years ago.
Yeah. And hopefully we will raise awareness. It is encouraging to see high profile people start to talk about it and for it to be reported in the press. So, I'm continuing to press on and soldier on. I'm just going to throw it. It's just come to me. Listen, I haven't made it yet, so I'm making a rod for my own back here. But if you're listening to this and you want more information about the andropause, drop us an email. I'll put together some sort of short sheet on it of some of the key facts and some of the things you can be doing, some of the lifestyle adjustments you can be doing. I'd say my final point on this is just about the importance of being open and being vulnerable, which I know for men is really hard. But I just want to say vulnerability is a form of strength, right? We've been taught to fear it. But it's actually a form of strength. If we can get this conversation out in the open and start sharing it, we can save lives. And that's not being dramatic. We can actually save lives. This is Men's Health Month after all. So let's start talking, do feel that you can have that conversation, with one friend, two friends, see where they're at. You'll be surprised, like so many men are suffering with this in silence, or even sometimes because they don't know that it even exists. But let's get the conversation out there, speak to your partners about it, talk about how you're feeling. So once we get it out in the open, we can start to find solutions for it.
Yeah, and I would say to the women out there, woman to woman, if you notice some of these symptoms, some of these things in the men in your life, partner, brother, it doesn't matter, the men in your life, and you are concerned or you're not understanding what they might be going through, that there's something that's changed, there's something that's different, maybe use this as a talking point. We don't have to ram it down their throats at all, but just having some level of understanding for us women, right? Having an understanding of what the men in our life might be going through physiologically, okay? So it's not just them changing as a person. Physiologically, we're all going through what we call this kind of like second adolescence, you know? When we were in our teenage years and we had all those hormonal changes, can you remember how, oh my goodness, overwhelming those emotions were? How overwhelming it was when our bodies were changing. We're kind of going through that all again, the men and the women. So I would just encourage you, you know, I think for us women, we do talk about things more. We can hold space for those conversations. We can encourage, we can love, we can be compassionate, and yeah, we can create a safe environment really for the men in our life to talk about this stuff. And these are good talking points, you know. Oh, I heard this podcast the other day and it talked about this thing called Andropause. Have you heard of that? No. So this is just how we're going to start being able to raise awareness. And I do think it would be a really, really beautiful thing. It could make a lot of difference if us women also helped raise awareness of the andropause. I really, really do. It's very, very, as I said, it's very important. It's very close to my heart because, you know, I've seen the struggles that some men have had at midlife, that the men have. I hope you don't mind me saying this. That's why I was kind of pausing a little bit there. But, you know, some people in James's life, some men in James's life have sadly committed suicide. And we hear these stories quite frequently because of maybe the industry that we're in. And we want to do something about that. So, and andropause is definitely a part of it.
It is. So I hope that has informed, possibly entertained as well. And like I say, reach out to us. Team at the Midlife Mentors. If you've got any questions on that, if you want a fact sheet on it, I will pull it together. And we look forward to speaking to you next time.
Yeah, sending you so much love. You take care. Bye.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah.